Thanks for joining me in Charleston, South Carolina. If you've never been here, you really should. You see, this place brings people together, both visitors and the citizens, in a really unique way through the power of locally grown food. A National Historic Landmark and America's oldest landscape garden, Middleton Place has been described by many as the most interesting and most important landscape in the United States.
The gardens at Middleton Place were started in 1741. This garden was really a green garden. And about 50 years after the garden was landscaped, the Camellia japonicus came. And one of those camellias are still alive today, and we are propagating that particular camellia. Then about 100 years after that, the azaleas came to Middleton Place. Henry Middleton used a right triangle in order to set up all of his former gardens. We like to think of all of the gardens as rooms. They are rooms inside a large garden. And we are standing at the octagonal garden. This was one of the original gardens that was set up on the hypotenuse of the triangle. We also have an area called the main parterre. The main parterre overlooked the terraces down to the Butterfly Lake and on to the Ashley River. And if you look at the Butterfly Lake, the center portion of the Butterfly Lake is lined up with the center portion of the Ashley River. That was the road that they used to come from Charleston to Middleton Place. Middleton Place is unlike any other garden in America. The terraces throughout the garden, lakes and ponds, and all of these were man-made. The greenery throughout the garden. You can come to this garden when the azaleas are not in bloom, when the camellias are not in bloom, and still enjoy the bones of the garden. And that is what Henry Middleton had in mind.
But I'm not here to see the garden today. We're actually here to take a look at the animals in the stable yard. You see, recently renovated, the stable yard is the home to heritage breeds of livestock and poultry, and there's no better place to get acquainted with them than there. Bob, it's just amazing all the changes that have happened here at Middleton Place since I was here last.
We've added some new fencing, we have some new heritage breeds, really kind of ramping up a little bit. We've been growing Carolina Gold rice, of course, a wonderful heirloom grain for years, and we've added to that idea more livestock that they might have had back in their time for visitors to see. Of course, not the scale they had.
No, right.
But it's something, frankly, people don't get out and see these kinds of animals ever.
There really is a wide range of livestock here that really sort of, I think, represents what would have been here in the day.
Very much so. Everything from water buffalo oxen to heritage breeds of poultry. As a matter of fact, just got a new arrival, some Spanish goats we're actually pretty excited about.
Really?
Yeah, I'd love to show them to you.
I'd love to see them.
Bud and Mo, two of our new arrivals. You know, for a long time, Spanish goats was a name they'd give to sort of a mongrel goat, but these are true, purebred Spanish goats.
Yeah.
Going back to the Spanish, of course. Once common throughout the Southeast.
And the Caribbean.
Quite.
Yeah. And then, of course, here's a French Alpine that wants to get in the act.
Ah, yes, old Leroy.
That's great.
And you know, the thing about keeping these heritage breeds, I mean, they may not be the greatest meat producer or hair producer or milk producer, but keeping that genetic diversity is very, very important.
Yeah.
You know, something we've discovered today, and by having places like this, where frankly, they're here more for education and interpretation, but it gives them a home.
Sure.
It gives them a safe and wonderful place, and we can share them with the public.
Yeah, you're safe harboring the genetics by having them here.
Oh, she's been hard at work. Laid 3 eggs.
She's a busy girl, that's for sure.
She is. There you
We're
go.
going to call you the chicken whisperer.
Yeah.
So this is a little Dominique hen, considered the oldest American breed of chicken.
She is, and the base stock for a lot of breeds that are around today.
Well, Bob, it's inspiring to see what you all are doing here at Middleton with regard to these breeds, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. We appreciate your work as well. Thank you for coming
you.
out to see us. We appreciate the time.
My pleasure. The chickens that most Americans eat today, well, they're very different than what our grandparents ate in the past. You see, commercial poultry production is all about getting birds up to a certain marketable size as quickly as possible. Some of the things lost with that sort of production, well, would include genetic diversity and also flavor. Birds that take longer to mature have better flavor. You see, there's a movement today to conserve these heritage breeds. Many chefs prefer them because of the flavor profile is so much better. And by these chefs and consumers asking for these heritage breeds, it's putting them back to work and conserving their genetics. Isn't that right, girl? Your farm is amazing. I mean, you're producing a wide range of products for the marketplace, mainly chefs, I understand.
We do a lot with chefs. We also do a lot with the end users through farmers markets and the CSA.
Well, Charleston is such a foodie hub, and do you find that the chefs in Charleston are looking for a specific item, a specific way animals are raised?
They're looking for a humanely raised animal. They do want pasture, and they want consistency.
Individuals, families, they are more and more in tune with what they're eating, where their food is coming from, which is a good thing. For health aspects, pastured birds are leaner, but they taste totally different from commercially processed birds. The texture is different, it's more firm. Commercially processed birds are soft and almost have a chemical flavor to them, if you will, and pastured birds do not. The chickens get to scratch around in the dirt and they get to find bugs and stuff that they would normally do because they get to actually move around. They eat grass, so their flavor is different, where in commercial houses, they don't really get to do any of that stuff. It's all in confinement and there's nothing natural about a confined chicken. Commercially processed birds, they produce a lot of hormones basically from the process of being killed. Pastured birds don't have that experience. They just kind of go to sleep as if you were going in to have surgery.
It seems like the restaurants that are really strong and have an amazing following, they're led by chefs who are really going directly to the source, and they're carving out a niche for themselves in the marketplace.
Right.
That this is really authentic food, it's sourced locally, and they're really standing behind the quality that they're serving.
I think we're seeing more and more chefs coming on board. Restaurants are being geared around the farm-to-table plan. So yeah, it's here to stay.
My name is Fred Newville, and currently I own the Fat Hen that's on Johns Island in Charleston, South Carolina. Today we're making a Coq Au Vin. I've been making this same Coq Au Vin since 1985, and it is absolutely delicious. This is a 3.5 pound bird. What you want to do is you want to quarter your chicken. We brine for 2 days. Now after your chicken is brined for 2 days, you're going to take it out of the brine, you're going to pat it dry. The reason why you want to pat it dry is because you're going to throw it in a hot oil. If it's not dry, then it's going to spatter on you, and also you're not going to get a very good sear. You're going to boil your chicken as opposed to searing it. And then you have your pan with olive oil. It's nice and hot. You want it to the smoking point. You're going to season your chicken on one side, and then you're going to place your chicken in your hot oil in your pan, skin side down. That's the most important side to sear, because when you start searing your chicken, your pan is going to cool down, okay? You want to shake it a little bit just so that it's not sticking, and then you get a nice brown sear on that. You flip it over, you season it again with salt and pepper, and remember, you want to do that liberally. You want the chicken to be flavorful, not bland. So you have a nice sear on it. You're going to remove your chicken, you're going to place it in a pan that you can top off with liquid, okay? So it's got to be a high pan. Now you begin your sauce process. So you're going to add mirepoix, your carrots, your onions, and celery. You're also going to add whole garlic. You're going to stir that around your pan a little bit, then you're going to add tomato paste. You add your tomato paste, you're going to swirl that around your pan a little bit, and you want to bring that sweetness out in that tomato paste. So you're going to cook it a little bit. Then you're going to add your red wine. you're gonna wanna reduce that down just by a quarter. You're gonna bring it to a boil to get rid of that winey flavor. It is Coq Au Vin, but you don't wanna eat a drunk chicken, okay? And you don't wanna taste that wine flavor. So then you add your tomatoes, and then you add your chicken stock. And you let that cook. All you're gonna do is bring it back to a boil. While it's coming back to a boil, you're gonna make your sachet bag. And what that is just a little bag of herbs and spices. And it's fresh parsley stems, a standard sachet bag. It's parsley stems, fresh thyme, peppercorns, bay leaf. That's it. Put it in your cheesecloth, tie it up, throw it in there. By that time, your sauce should be just about to a boil. When it comes to a boil, you're gonna take that, you're gonna pour it over your chicken. Then, you're gonna take a piece of saran wrap, cover the pan with just the top, and then foil. And the reason why you wanna cover it with the saran wrap is because it locks it in. It'll help the steam and it'll keep the heat in, and it's just so much better. Then you cover it with your foil, and then you throw it in your oven at 250 degrees for an hour and a half. When hour and a half is done, you're gonna pull it out. You're gonna make sure that the skin and the meat on the end of the leg bone are just coming away from the bone. That's a sign that it's done. All right, then you're gonna unwrap it, put it in your refrigerator, let it cool down, preferably overnight, but it doesn't have to be. You set your chicken aside, you strain your sauce, reduce it down just by a quarter. That'll give it a nice richness. You're gonna put your chicken in a cold pan, skin side up. You're gonna pour some sauce in there, and you're gonna throw it in the oven. 350, 12 to 15 minutes, depending upon your oven. While your chicken is in the oven, what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your vegetables ready. And what our vegetables were today for this season are bacon lardons, sweet potatoes, we have parsnips, carrots, and shallots, and mushrooms as well. You're gonna add some sauce to that. You're gonna cook that for a little bit, and then you're gonna add just a little bit of butter. Set that aside, take your chicken, put it on top of your vegetables, the sauce that you heated the chicken in, just a little bit on top, and then just a little bit of that sauce that you added a little bit of butter to right on top of that, and voila, you have Coq Au Vin.
A vibrant restaurant scene and local food cultures made Charleston one of the leading destinations for foodies around the country. But it's just not the food that brings people to places like the Crew Cafe.
My name is William Barclay Hall, and we're here on Wadmalaw Island, just south of Charleston, at the only tea plantation in America. All the tea that we drink as Americans come from other countries: India, China, Ceylon, which is now Sri Lanka, Africa, and this is really the only place where tea is grown in this country. There are a few other places around, but they're very small compared to us. We are really a commercial tea plantation here. So if you let these plants grow, they grow to a tree 20, 30 feet high. So it's really a tree that we're keeping to the size of a bush, and that is in order to harvest the top leaves. All the attempts to grow tea in America have dated back to the 1800s, and when you take a cutting of a plant and produce a new plant, that plant isn't 1 year old. It's the same age as the mother plant that you took the cuttings from. So all our plants date back to 1888, and they've been around for a long time, and therefore are acclimated to South Carolina. And what tea really loves to survive is high temperature, high humidity, and good rainfall. And Charleston gives us all three. So the tea plant survives very well here. If we were going to make new tea plants, we'd take what we call a whip, which is something like this, cut it with 2 leaves. We leave the 2 leaves on to give it nutrients and to take in the water and the nutrients, and we just stick it in the media, the soil that we use, forming a root system. So a new root ball will come out of here, and then within a year and a half out to the field. We can start harvesting it after about 3 years. It'll reach maturity in the 5th year and be good for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now there's only 3 basic teas in the world. There's black tea, green tea, and oolong tea. And they all come from the exact same tea plant. It's how you make them in the factory to determine whether that tea is going to be green, black, or oolong. We're here at the withering bed. The leaves come from the field and are put into this machine where they reduce the moisture slightly before going to the grinders. These prods then push the leaf onto the conveyor, up the conveyor, and into the grinders. It then falls into these grinders. They're called rotavane grinders. This is where it macerates the leaf, breaks the cell wall, and exposes the tea juices to the air. Goes through 3 grinders here. Once the leaf is macerated, this is what it looks like, a nice green color that's ready to now go straight into the dryer and begin reducing the moisture down to approximately 2%. This machine is based on static electricity that pulls all these stems and fibers out of the tea to be left with a pure green tea ready to be packaged and served to the consumer.
Just look at all this beautiful produce. You know, if you want to support your local community, great place to start is go to the farmer's market and support local growers. Now there's one young lady who's taken this a step further. Katie Stagliano from Somerville, South Carolina, had an idea where she could create gardens and maintain them across the country where the food from these gardens would actually go to help those in need. Katie, this garden is amazing. It's so big.
Thank you so much. I know, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes.
Good heavens. Well, you know, when you started with the idea, you didn't think of a garden this big, did you?
No, definitely not. When we started, there was only a couple of rows, and I never thought that we would use all this land. So we've had this garden for about 5 years now, and each year we add another row, add some more plants, so.
You know, one of the things I really like about the design and layout is you have these long rows, you have really wide spaces for the kids to walk in, and the beds are a little bit narrower so they can reach in and work.
It's really great because we have so many kids come up here and so many classes that we need a lot of room for all the kids to maneuver their way through the garden, especially with wheelbarrows when we're wheelbarrowing and compost.
When they're working and doing
and soil
things.
And all sorts of things, so yeah.
So it's like an outdoor classroom.
It really is. We've had PE classes come up here and work, science classes.
This big idea started with one of these little plants.
Yes, it all started with a cabbage when I was in the 3rd grade.
A cabbage plant.
Yes, I brought it home from school one day. I brought it home, I planted it, and it grew to be a 40-pound cabbage.
No, 40 pounds?
I brought it to a soup kitchen, and it helped to feed 275 people.
That is a wonderful story.
I became inspired and thought, if one cabbage can help to feed 275 people,
yeah.
Imagine how many people an entire garden could feed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the inspiration and motivation for me to start Katie's Crops.
Well, it's a wonderful idea, and it's very inspiring.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Brandy, I just love this house.
So do I.
It is fantastic. Do you find that when people for the first time are visiting the Aiken-Rhett house, they come in and they go, wait a minute, this looks different because it's a preservation.
They do. Historic Charleston Foundation operates 2 historic properties, the Nathaniel Russell House and the Aiken-Rhett House, and they perfectly dovetail in so many ways. Not only in time periods, Russell House is early federal, this is a Greek revival structure,
yes.
But also in preservation philosophies. So by visiting the 2 houses, you see a restored historic interior that's back to the 1808 grandeur.
Beautifully restored, yes.
We're actually continuing the project that started 20 years ago. and continuing with a soft furnishings project at the Nathaniel Russell House.
You said soft furnishings. What do you mean by that?
Those are the touches that would make the house a home. So it's not only about the furnishings plan and making sure that that's accurate, but also making sure that rooms appear as they would have with the window treatments, the carpets.
Interesting. Well, let's come back to this place, which is the preservation. Some people may come in and look at the state of these rooms and go, this place is falling apart. Get to work, repaint.
And some people do. They say, well, when are you restoring this house?
Right. Is it up next?
Yeah. And then we explain the philosophy. And in fact, preservation as found does not mean that we allow these interiors to deteriorate. We are working very hard to stop the clock, which is actually much more difficult than a restoration.
I'm sure.
I find that in this time where so many different types of experiences are available, this appeals to the visitor because they feel this is the real deal.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And they're seeing the layers over time.
I mean, even today, I've noticed people walking around, they're just completely mesmerized while they listen to the tour.
They have their headphones and they're just immersed in this.
Absorbing every aspect of it.
Yeah, and the sounds of history and the textures in the house.
So this family lived in this house like this until the 1970s, and this really reflects, what, the 1880s?
This does. The color palette that you see today is one of the last major restorations that happened in this house.
It's remarkable to me. I really feel like I'm in a time capsule when I come to this place.
This truly is an American treasure.
It's one thing to visit a property and enjoy the architecture, the decorative arts and furnishings and so forth, but it's quite another when you can get a little closer to perhaps how they might have lived during that time. And one of the best ways to do this is maybe even try some of the food they may have eaten.
We have a farm-to-table feast, and we're going to be in the Aiken's courtyard. It is exactly where people would have been working and eating a night to talk about heritage and history in a place that has an aura that everybody can feel.
Well, as you can see, the party is well underway here at the Aiken-Rhett house. Very exciting. Hope you've enjoyed our journey through the South Carolina Low Country. We've connected with farmers and chefs and seen how the whole food scene here has been revitalized. Hope you've been inspired to check out your own local farmers market and connect with a farmer yourself. Until next time, I'm Alan Smith.
We have a goal of 500 gardens in all 50 states within the next 5 years.
If somebody has an idea to create a garden, a food garden, where they can help people who are hungry, they can submit an application.
Yes, we have grant cycles open. We have grant cycles once a year, and we receive applications from kids ages 9 to 16 across the United States, and they tell us about how they want to start a garden, and we pick as many as we possibly can, and you start your own Katie's Crafts garden.